I've got 12:16. We have a potential, ooh, I can hear there we go. Thank you, Sarah. We have a pretty full 45 minutes, and we may end early depending on how many questions you all bring to the party here. But I'm Karen Geschko. I'm the Assistant Director at the Wisconsin Arts Board. And Caitlin, I've already turned our agenda on its head. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, welcome everyone. I'm Caitlin Burrell. I'm the Folk and Traditional Arts Coordinator at the Arts Board, and I oversee the Arts Ed component of the local art or the local arts of the Creative Communities program as well. So thank you all for joining us. I know it's a really beautiful day here in Madison, so we'll keep it brief as possible.
Yeah, my guess is it's beautiful around the state. And I get to facilitate the local arts component of Creative Communities. And so for the 45 minutes before us, we're going to start off by saying congratulations to you all for receiving the Creative Communities Grant. It's a pretty rigorous application and review process. And so you deserve a lot of kudos. And I hope that you're finding ways to celebrate that and get the word out about how awesome you and your project are to your communities. We're going to go over any broad questions that you all have related to the panel comments if you watch the meeting or the recording. And please know that if you have really specific questions, we can follow up with you after this session. We're going to go over the grant proposal revision report. We're going to go over the grant recipient toolkit, which is shiny new for us online. We're going to talk about how you will evaluate the success of this project. We'll hear from you on that, and any questions that you have, and share a few best practices, I think. And then we'll go through the final report form. So first of all, the question is, did everyone here receive the link to the video recording of the panel meeting that discussed your applications? And
No.
Okay, so that's a no. So would you mind, Caitlin, putting in the chat how people can find that video?
Yeah, all of our grant panel recordings live on our YouTube channel. So I will, there is a grant panel meeting section you will see here on the YouTube channel, and you can just scroll and either find part 1 and 2 of the Arts Ed or of the Folk Arts or of the local arts meeting. And I will find the chat.
And if you have any trouble, once you get there, you can see, so we sent out the agenda in advance of those panel meetings. So you can kind of see, all right, there were like 10 applicants before me on the agenda. So I'm going to be about an hour and a half into the conversation. I'll just click around until I hear them talking about me, is basically how we can run that. And it's interesting because there are some groups who choose to like share that snippet with their boards, or with if there's a strong partner that they want to hear the discussion, then they'll share it with them. And so it gives you a chance to, celebrate and brag about some really great stuff that the panel said, and to address some of the panel's concerns and say, well, we're doing that, but we didn't make it clear. Or, oh, they pointed something out that's really interesting. Maybe we want to think about doing that as well. Or, how do we want to respond to that internally? We don't ask you to respond to the panel at all, but we want you to hear what they had to say about the application that you submitted. So, so that's why we wanted to make sure everybody had access to that recording. For those of you who did have a chance to look at it, did you have any questions about what the panel said or about that whole process?
Yes. So David Potter, University of Wisconsin Superior Community Music School. One of the things I was curious about was if it was possible to receive any possible clips of some of the written feedback. So, for example, like with ours, I mean, we received a lot of very positive feedback and very, very grateful for that. One thing that didn't come up during that portion of the video was any particular critical feedback of ways to improve. And so I would love to learn, because obviously the scores weren't all the same from reviewers. And so it would be great to find ways to grow based on maybe some of the comments that may not have been said during that video meeting.
David, that's a great question. And because you would like to have that, if you would be so kind, just to help Caitlin and I, we are half of the Arts Board staff with you today. So if you would help us and just send Caitlin an email with that request, that will be a reminder to her for that. Thank you.
Thanks, David, and anyone else who,
Any
would like-
other questions that you have, Rebecca? Yeah.
I was a little bit concerned when one of the last statements about okay, I forgot to say Rebecca Marmon Krieger with the Enduring Families Project, we're a children's book program. I was a little concerned about one of the last statements that was made by one of the gentlemen. He was in the lower part of the lower box, and he expressed the situation that he was worried about the history that was being used to write the books. And I would have liked to have addressed that with him, particularly with the fact that we religiously deal with primary documents. And we said that over and over and over in the grant. And that one of the reasons we're writing the books is so that this is dealt with religiously.
Rebecca, I'm going to interrupt and just say you are not alone in having that feeling as an applicant that the panel said something and you want to say, wait, but we've got that covered. And the
Yeah.
way we're set up, that is not something that you'll be able to do. But the value of that is that you can say to yourself, okay, this person still, after reading all of this, did not understand this piece. The next time I'm writing an application, I'm going to lead with this, and I'm going to say others have had this concern, something like that. So to just file it away. We have 5 panelists on each of these panels, and they all have different capacities and different ways of filtering information and different expertise that they bring to the mix. And so it is a rare review where you're not going to have someone say something where the applicant goes, I thought I had that in there, or, oh, that's on page 4, or,
Yeah.
whatever. So
Often
I'm just going to say, I hear you on that. And we're going to move to the next question unless you had another one.
Often that is the complaint of Black history, though, and that felt a little bit problematic.
Okay. Oh, that's helpful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Other questions in the mix here before we go to the next? Okay. Thank you. And feel free to follow up with us, one-on-one afterwards too, if that feels more comfortable. All righty. Then the next piece that we're going to cover is the grant proposal revision report, which is a very long title for this document that basically, if you didn't receive the full amount that you requested, which is almost everyone here, because we had a large group of strong project proposals this year in all 3 categories. So if there are any questions about, so what we're going to ask you to do is if you did not receive that amount, you need to fill out this revision report. And Caitlin,
Karen,
can you share your
can I hop
screen?
into I'm just going to share the,
Perfect.
yeah, I'm going to go ahead and
Perfect.
share the toolkit that we shared. And in that toolkit, and you will find this revision report linked with your grant agreement. So if you received less than $100, if your award was less than $100, more than $100 less than you requested, you will see this revision report linked with your grant agreement in Smart Simple. But we also have it available on the here linked in this toolkit. So when you open it up,
Wrong one.
oh, revision report. Oh, sorry, Karen. We don't.
Let's go. Since we're in here, yeah, we don't really have it linked, which is okay. It's basically a little form that you'll see, and you just say, okay, we didn't get the full amount that we requested, and therefore we are going to adjust things in this way. We're either going to add the money that we didn't get from you from another source and not change the project, or we are not going to be able to do the project as we proposed. And so we're going to have to make these changes because we didn't get everything that we asked for from you. And so this is our plea to you. This is super important. please don't revise your project by cutting the thing that the panel loved most about your project. Please don't revise the project by saying, well, we're just not going to pay the artist then, you know, please don't do that. If you have questions about how you might want to approach that, and you know your limits and you know your capacity in terms of fundraising or whatever, please give Caitlin or me a call or an email, and we'll talk through it with you. But that's a trend that we started seeing a little while ago, not just in a few, but we just wanted to call it out as something to be aware of. Please don't cut the thing that the panel loved most about your project. And we can talk you through maybe alternative ways of other fundraising, or, you know, is there other adjustments to be made, not to belabor the point. Alrighty. This is a newly redesigned Creative Communities Grant Recipient Toolkit that Caitlin just showed you online. So we wanted to walk through it with you quickly, see if it has what you need, hear any questions that you have, and get your general reactions to it. So Caitlin, take it away.
Yeah, so this should really, you know, initially or previously, we had included a lot of these steps in the award letter, and it was just really cumbersome. And I think that some pieces were missed. So we decided that maybe better to just have a link with the steps really clearly outlined here. So it really is a kind of what comes next document, including walking you through how to access. And I think most of you have done this and submitted your signed grant agreement already. But if you do need to complete a revision report, like I said, that will be linked with that grant agreement. It'll be a PDF that you can download and then re-upload. And then as well as the credit line and logo use form. And that's the one that I jumped to already. But this is really just, you know, tell us how you'll inform your community about this project. And we ask you just check the boxes that apply here, and note that you will include the Arts Board's and the National Endowment's logo in, you know, printed or online material related to the project, and then a signature here. So this one's pretty straightforward, but please also be sure to include that when you're uploading your materials with the signed contract. Beyond that, we kind of outline, you know, what we strongly recommend and what we require. So the requirements include notifying government officials. So that's, you know, the governor, senator, and your reps. So there is a link down at the bottom of this toolkit if you need a, you know, map to identify those. And once you identify your region in the map, it'll give you an email address for those contacts. And then there's also some contact information for the governor's office here. There's a section to upload a copy of those, that outreach, those legislative letters on just below where you'll upload your signed contract as you're working through these requirements. So if you have any questions related to those letters, we have a sample available at the bottom of this page as well. But feel free to reach out if you have questions there.
Hey, Caitlin, I'm just
yep.
going to interrupt for a minute. So this piece, the complete the grant agreement piece, obviously required. We'll need all that stuff. And then notifying your stakeholders. We have this here, and we recommend it because what happens often is that you guys are so, and we can totally relate. You're so busy. You're doing so many things. You've got the grant. Hooray. All right, let's move on. Let's get it done. And it's rare that we take a moment and step back and devote the time to saying, wow, this is something that's important, and it's worth letting our board know. It's worth letting our partners know. It's worth letting our local news outlets know, or sharing it via social media or our website or whatever. Because I don't think we celebrate small or large wins enough in our world right now. But also, it's important from our perspective, for your community to understand that you've received this grant, taxpayer funding, at a time and in a state where the Arts Board receives about 18 cents per person per capita, right, from the legislature for the work that we invest in your work. So for these grants, etc. Minnesota, on the other hand, receives something like $9.48 a person. for their arts board and the granting that they do per capita. And so what we are trying to convey in many different ways, and this is one of them, and you get to help us with this, is to say the arts are important in Wisconsin. The projects that we're doing are important in Wisconsin, and they deserve taxpayer funding. And we got some, yay. And frankly, Wisconsin and its communities deserves more than 18 cents a person. And so this is a way just to kind of continue that conversation, which is happening on a number of different levels. So we encourage you to do that. Long story short, that's also one of the reasons why we ask you to connect with your legislators, so they understand, first of all, that you received a grant. And you'll see in the sample letter that we provide that, and you can use it or not, I mean, whatever works for you, but we encourage you to actually invite them to the one piece of the project, whether it is an event or a series of things, and actually follow up with them if they don't respond. And many of them won't the first time, because they get so many and they think it's just a generic, they don't really care whether I'm coming or not kind of invitation. But if you follow up and say, we noticed you hadn't responded by the date we encouraged you to respond, and we really do want you to come. So since that didn't work, can you come on this date? And it's amazing how many of them actually step forward and say, oh, you're serious. You actually do want me to come. Okay. And then they will respond often to that second one. So I just wanted to go down and segue that. Thank you, Caitlin, for letting me interrupt.
No, that's really helpful. Thanks, Karen. And I think that, touches on and covers this notify your local media, which we also strongly recommend. Thank you, Karen.
Sure.
And market the award. This is something that we do require. So it's the Wisconsin's Arts Board's 50th anniversary this year. So we have a 50th anniversary mark, and then our standard logo. All of that is available, linked here on our website. And
I will say that our anniversary runs from August 3rd through August 2nd, right? So it started last August, it'll end up this August. So we give you the option. If you want to use the 50th mark instead of our regular logo, you are more than welcome to do that, and that's great. And if you would just rather use the regular logo, that's fine too. And there's all kinds of camera ready, iterations of that via this link.
yes. And then the track your impact of the award is, related to the number of folks who the project will serve. These are really, a lot of these are pieces that, sorry, I'm going to go ahead and mute here, that will be included in the required final report. So I will just walk you through that piece after Karen discusses evaluation a little bit, but so maybe I'll return to the tracking the impact, but most of this will be for not entirely for, but part of this is because these are much of these are half of our support is federal funds from the National Endowment for the Arts. They do require some of this in their final reporting to them. So I will walk you through all of those fields that are required. But Karen, more about maybe tracking the social and economic impact of these funds. And then I see a hand from Megan.
Yeah, so actually we're going to talk about evaluation shortly. We'll get into that. A couple of comments in the chat. Thank you so much for putting that in. We are recording it. Thanks for the comments on the toolkit, Mark, and anyone else who wants to put those in there. And for those of you who didn't get the link to the panel review recording, who haven't seen this link to the toolkit, those went out in the award letters. Right, Caitlin? So those have been sent to the person who is noted as the primary contact for this grant. If that is not you, please connect with the person who's receiving that information so you don't miss anything, okay? And so that's where you're going to find these things in that award letter. And I will also put in, just because you asked, I'll put in the link to the toolkit as well. But yeah, we can get to the evaluation piece in the next section, Caitlin, I think.
Yeah. And Megan, did you have a question there? I'm not sure if it was in the chat. I'm not able to see the chat right now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if there are any like dates set or deadlines set for the credit line and logo form, grant agreement and revision report, are there deadlines or is it just by the end of what would that be, June 2025?
No, you'll
No.
need it before we can send you your grant award check. So the ASAP deadline, right? So as soon as you give
Okay.
it to us, the sooner we can cut the check as of July 1.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Is there any chance that is that in the toolkit, that's like an ASAP, you won't get the money unless you
That's
turn
in your,
these,
that's in the award letter.
okay.
Would it be helpful? It sounds like it might be helpful to have kind of a generic award letter attached to this too, for those who don't, for whatever reason, aren't the primary contact and don't see that award letter. Is that helpful or am I overthinking this?
That would be helpful, thank you.
All righty, great. Caitlin, let's remember to do that.
Yes,
I'm
definitely.
I'm making a note right now. The multitasking brain is so overrated. Okay,
I
all right.
think, Karen,
what's
I'll turn it to you for evaluation if there's nothing
Oh, were
else.
we gonna go over the final report form?
Yeah, do you want to do that now or you want to do that
Yeah.
before evaluation?
Let's
Great,
just do
yeah.
that and then we'll focus on the whole evaluation piece.
So I'm going to swap on over. This is our New Glarus Cat Farm, our test application here. So I am emulating as Dale, but when you after you've submitted your signed grant agreement after July 1st, a final report will be available under this requires attention section. So there will not be 22 items in yours. There should hopefully just be 1 or 2 there. And I'm going to look at an FY24 final report. Like I said, you will not have to scroll down and find it in the same way. It should be pretty clear what you're looking for. But some of those fields that I mentioned, it's fairly straightforward, but project discipline, type of activity, this arts education component, and then some of these fields related to number of artists, adults, youth served. Those are some of those fields that we will report back to the National Endowment for the Arts. So it is really helpful as you begin your project to just be tracking that information over the course of the project. And same with populations benefited. These are National Endowment for the Arts required fields here, as well as artistic activity locations. So in the final report, you will be asked to, and maybe there's one main event and it is at this one address. Sometimes there's, upwards of, I think that at one point there was one applicant that had like hundreds of locations.
Way too
Hopefully that
many.
won't be the case, but you can go ahead and add, as many as you need to there.
Not 100. If you have 100,
Not 100.
not even 20. So if you
Yeah.
have that many, please get a hold of us and we'll figure
Yes.
something out with you.
Thanks, Karen. Yes. The narrative piece, this final report will look really familiar, similar to the application form itself, but it really is pretty straightforward. I don't think that I need to walk through each of these, but as you work through the final report, feel free to reach out if you have questions. Budget summary is just as it sounds, a summary of the full project budget, which will kind of carry over from your application form. So if you need to revise some of these fields, and we anticipate that you might, some of that income might have been an estimate. If you'd like to revise, please do so in the final report. And just make sure, just like in the application form, that your total project income and total project expenses are balanced here. And support material. So we will ask for images or video related to the final outcome of or culminating event of the project. So, please be tracking that as well. And again, fairly straightforward, but that is the bulk of the final report. Karen, any pieces you want to add there?
No, just wondering if you all have questions. Some of you have done these before, some of you have not. So any questions about this would be great. Otherwise, as always, when you get into it later, you can ask us.
Yeah, Rebecca, I see a hand there.
I have a wider array of grants. Do you want things that are attached to other grants that could be slotted into some of these things? Like I'm shooting a video that goes along with another grant. Is that something that you would want in here or just
Oh,
what
you mean
applies to your grant?
you're shooting a video of the project?
Of the teacher part of the project, and then they're working with students and, you just mentioned video, and I'm wondering if that video could be something that you would like to see in here.
So here's a question. Are these grant funds going toward that, is also going toward that project?
No, your funds are going to something else, but the funds came from another grant, but it's a video that applies to goals of the same project.
So
It's all
no.
the same project.
So, well, that was my question.
Yeah.
So if you have a huge project and you're
Yes.
getting a grant from one group to do part of that project and you're getting a
Mhm,
grant from us to do
mhm,
another part of the
mhm.
project, then yes, whatever documentation you have of the project, yeah,
Okay,
we'd love to see.
okay.
Now, if it's like an 8-hour marathon video kind of thing, then
No.
let's talk about.
No,
I'm just
no.
kidding,
It's,
Rebecca.
it's a training video that goes
Just
along
kidding.
with what the books that we're doing.
Okay,
And
great.
so it's part of what we're doing.
So that very long answer, sorry, is yes. Thank you.
But
Thank
you're
you.
not
Caitlin,
paying for the
can we
video,
close
somebody else
this
is.
screen sharing now?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, because I can't see everybody yet. It's my own like black. Rachel, yes.
In response to a previous grant, if we recorded the final project of the grant, do you want the entire final project or bits and pieces of the day? It's not going to be a video of the whole day, but like the keynote as opposed to, do you want a piece of the day?
It would be fun and it would offer us a chance to celebrate part of the project with you. So yeah, I mean, please share what you can related to this. That'd be great.
I'll note that when you upload material like that, if there's a portion of the video that you really want us to focus on for the final report, please note that. And I don't have any files uploaded here, but there's this properties button. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. There is a properties button when you upload images or videos, and you can, please be sure to include the year that it was created, a title, and a brief description.
Actually, Caitlin, that's critical. That's like the work sample that you
Yeah.
all submitted within the application. So just, yeah, super important to add that piece. Thank you. Someone else just had a question. Was it in the chat maybe?
See, Julie, maybe?
Yeah. My question is that what we were planning to do as part of our grant, we're creating trash and recycling receptacles for Land O'Lakes, is to create a step-by-step how we did the project checklist, because it's multi-stakeholder with schools and industry and artists. And I would like to be able to, before we finalize it, test it with some of the people in this group, because we're doing it for other communities. We want something that comes out of this that we can share.
This is like the perfect evaluation segue. So hold that, Julie. Thank you. I'm so glad you're doing that. Anything else related to is the final report going to be available? I think as soon as you get your grant contract back to us and we start the grant process, then the final report becomes automatically available to you in Smart Simple.
It should be available, I would say, in July at some point. It should become available, and I will check in with Dale because it's we need to make that happen on our end. So we will do that.
Yeah, but you'll have a lot of time to be with it before it is due. I will say that for those of you who are doing a summer project and you just want to, it's not due until the end of July of 25, but you want to get it done while it's fresh in your mind and you can not think about it anymore, and hooray. I mean, it's going to be there next month, so you'll be able to access it then. All right, other questions before we jump into evaluation? Okay, full disclosure, I'm a little bit of an evaluation geek. So I'm going to try to just curb my enthusiasm and get this all in 10 minutes. I would love to know from you all, and I'm going to make my notes actually big so I can't see your faces, sorry. Oh, for 2 screens. So most of the grant recipients, most of y'all said you're going to use surveys as at least one of your evaluation tools. So awesome. One thing that's key to remember, and you probably all know this, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that you want to determine if you want to determine whether your project increased people's knowledge of an art form or decreased their loneliness, because social isolation is still a major health issue today in Wisconsin and around the country. So that may be one reason why you're doing this project. Or if you want to know if the project improved their understanding of an artist's work or whatever, then your survey question probably shouldn't be, how did you hear about this concert? Or how did you hear about this event, right? So doing a marketing survey is great to determine how effective your marketing approach is. But if you create one of those, that shouldn't be all that you do, if you do. So, basically figure out what it will take for you to know that your project was a success according to the goals that you set out for this project and you put in your application, and and then frame your questions and the surveys around that. One of the grant recipients in the pool this year did something that just caught my attention. They identified goals for their surveys, actually. So for example, one goal for this coming year's survey work, they said, was that 80% of participating artists responded that the project was beneficial to their networking, their career development, and artistry. And then they said in 2023, 75% of the 27 professional artists gave 4s and 5s out of 5 on this one. So they're looking to increase that for this coming year. Another goal for their survey work was, 90% of audience members are inspired to connect with others from different backgrounds to build community. That kind of thing. So they were very specific about what their broader goals were, as well as some of their more specific goals. So I just wanted to put that out there, and then just turn to you all and say, what do you think might be difficult to do in your evaluation work? Do you have any concerns or curiosities or questions? And what do you feel really pretty confident about? And Julie, you need to hold your tongue for just a minute, because you joined me with evaluation geekness, and I appreciate that.
And I see a hand from Rachel already here.
Good, and Megan. All right, Rachel.
Our hardest challenge with surveys is getting people to fill them out. We send them out to every audience, and this isn't necessarily for our project, but just in general. We send a survey out after the production to the cast members and get maybe 5 people out of a cast of 40 responding. And a similar percentage of audience members will respond to a survey. For the project itself, we had a much smaller response to those surveys than we thought we would get. So how do we get more responses?
So a couple questions. And the first is, are surveys the best way for you to evaluate?
Otherwise, it's observation. I don't really know.
So, or it could be a, hey, cast, after the first performance or before the second performance or at the cast party or whatever. A crowd, raise your hand if, how many? Turn to the person next to you, so you can gather information in that way, especially if you have board or other staff or other volunteers who are keyed in to be listening to that, right? So
how do we record it?
How do you record it?
Those are like fast. That's a ton of information coming in a very short amount of time. How do we record and quantify and qualify that particular form? Because we do that too.
Okay, it depends on the questions you want to ask and what you're trying to gather, right?
Okay.
So we've also had some real success with groups saying, hey, audience members, it's intermission time. Or, hey, before you go, we're going to ask you to do this and put your, if you want to put your email or whatever, then there are ways to say, we're going to put you in a drawing for a free ticket next time, or we're going to incentivize, or we're going to be really super grateful, or you get a cookie from the table for free, or, that kind of thing, so that you're gathering. And then you have volunteers at the door saying, hey, did you get a chance to do that? It's super important. Do you have a couple minutes? And even if you have, you know, like 20% more people do it in that way, that's one way that's been effective for some groups. I'm going to turn to the wisdom of the group and ask, do any of you have any thoughts for Rachel about that question? We're having times getting surveys back from cast and audience. Any wisdom here? It's okay if
I
not.
don't, this is Betty from Ridgeland. I don't know if you could, as people are coming into the event, hand them a survey and then have a basket or a drop off on the way out. I don't know. I'm just raising it.
Yeah.
And if you put your email here, then we will be glad. And that's another way to gather emails, right? For audience development and developing your database. If you're willing to put your email on here, and if it's an anonymous survey and they don't want to do that, you know, that's fine. But it would be great for you then to build up your database and put them in a drawing for a free ticket for next time or whatever, or a big thank you or something. Julie.
I've,
Yeah.
I've found that sometimes it's better, this is digital age where we like to do everything electronically, but I think, my experience, what has really worked is you print these off, make the survey short, just like 5 or less questions. But then what I've done is have these surveys like right there at these events, and give them time to fill it out like right then and there. And then most of the time I had more response that way than any electronic survey. So just been my experience with that.
Thanks, Scott. I think I saw Megan and then I see Pacao, and let's go with Megan first.
Yeah, thank you. I had the same question, so
Oh, okay,
great
great.
minds. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Pakou. Yes.
So it's Paku, but so this is kind of like a two-part thing. One thing that seems to work for us, to kind of help answer the one about like surveys.
Yeah.
In our population, we do more oral surveys because a lot of our folks don't read and write English. So it seems like that works a little bit better for us. And we get to interact and kind of draw more information from them versus like a piece of paper. So that seems to work for us through oral survey. And then another question that I guess this is a question that I have, like, does like the increase of participant count towards like kind of like the overall success of the program? Does that make sense?
It does. And first of all, let me just say thank you for helping me know how to pronounce your name. I'm grateful. So it depends on what your goals are, right? So if your goal for the project is to increase the number of people that you're connecting with, then yeah. But if your goal is maybe not to increase the number, but to deepen the experience for those who come, then maybe not. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Just back to Rachel's question, because surveys are a bit of it can be a wonky beast for sure. So really it depends on, I'm thinking about surveying cast members. It depends on the level and quality of response that you need, right? If you just want to say, hey, were you happy? That's one survey response. Or do you have ideas for the next show or the next work or the next choreographer or the next whatever? Do you want to choreograph? Do you want to that's another thing. Yeah, so I mean it really depends on the kinds of information that you need from the people that you're surveying. And sometimes if you've got a sort of core group of people who are engaged in the productions of your work, sometimes it's more effective to connect with them not around a show when some of them are already maxed out. So it's a month later, and it's literally having a couple board members say, yes, I will help with this, and doing the phone call or the email or the whatever. I know phone calls are becoming an issue, so whatever. But to have that more one-on-one, again, with a very specific and directed plan. You're not wasting you're not wasting anybody's time. You have a real question that you need real information from that will really affect your future work. You know, that kind of
And
thing. Because otherwise, if it's just a broad thing, you can ask, and if 4 people respond, then that's enough, because no response is a response. And that tells you something too, right? Caitlin, I'm sorry, I just
I
talked.
was just gonna say, Rachel, and given Dare to Dream's focus on accessibility and the work that you've come in for, I think that maybe those in person or those phone calls or some kind of focus group might be really fruitful. If your board and is willing to, you know, help you organize that. So, and I'm happy to talk more one-on-one about that.
And I will also say that Caitlin and I would be happy to look at any draft surveys, any draft approaches. And if you want to bounce some evaluation ideas off of us, you know, we're not trying to cram a lot of information into 45 minutes, please feel free to do that. We'll set it up. We could set it up with several. David, I see your hand.
Yeah, and actually I don't know how to put my hand back down. Oh, now there it is. But yeah, I guess maybe a comment that one benefit I found with the combination of yes surveys, but also semi-structured interviews is the idea that sometimes you get insights even beyond what, and I really like the idea of semi-structured, because it's like, yeah, you have sort of these sets of questions that you're going to potentially ask, but then you can kind of do check-ins during that period of time in an interview. That's when I ended up getting something that I didn't expect in one interview, where one of the student instructors had said, you know, this is an area where I feel really safe because I can try things. It's okay to experiment with ideas, and it's okay. And so hearing something like that theme of safety, and so it becomes, and in my mind, it becomes less an idea of trying to establish validity, which might be more in the quantitative approach, but rather establishing trustworthiness in the qualitative approach. So yeah, I have found a lot of meaningful things coming out of semi-structured interviews.
Thank you for that.
I think I saw
Alrighty.
Julie's hand and then Stacy.
And then Julie.
Oh,
So let's make it, we have 3 minutes, so let's go.
Julie, go ahead.
incentives like chocolate chip cookies or bags of popcorn that your board make, you know, food.
Right.
And just doing short videos like interviews and capturing, because, you know, videos are so freaking powerful. And then the last one I just learned, if any of you use Miro, you can hold a focus group on Miro and capture comments on stickies, and the board will sort it for you, and it's free. Miro, MIRO.com. And I'd be happy to show what we did to anybody, but it took a little while to get it there. You can tag the stickies, boom, powerful. Over.
Julie, can you put a link to that in the
Yes,
chat?
definitely.
That would be
We'll do that right now.
awesome. I'm going to put a link to something that's one of my very favorite evaluation tools, and it's how to measure the social impact of your work. So if you have those broader goals like decreasing loneliness or connecting your community or building bridges across divides or those kinds of things, affecting knowledge, affecting behavior, affecting whatever it is. There's a group called Americans for the Arts, and they have a program called Animating Democracy. And they have this amazing tool called Measuring Social Impact. And it's specifically related to the arts, which is great, but it can be used more broadly. So I'm going to put that link in the chat too, before we go to the next question, if there was the next question.
I think that was Stacy.
Hi, everybody. I'm with the Wisconsin Dance Council, and we just shifted over to interviews right as I raised my hand, and that was kind of my question about interviews. I think we were thinking of surveys, but also post-performance Q&A session with our audience, and then interviews with participants, like after the culminating event. And so these are all great ideas. I was just wondering about supporting materials for interviews. Are we in that final report just sort of summarizing findings from these interviews, or do we need to transcribe?
Oh my goodness, no. I mean, so thank you. Great question. You're not doing this for us, right? You're doing this for you. And so what you've told us in the application is you're going to do this. This conversation is to help you for those of you who aren't quite sure how you're going to do it, or if you have questions about that, just to reassure you, we're resources and to talk about some of that, you're going to do it. And then you're going to give us a super great, you know, in the final report narrative, this is what we learned kind of thing. So very broad level. This is what we did. This is what we discovered. We don't need a lot of in-depth because frankly, we're doing this for you, right? This is a requirement that will help move your work forward, we hope.
And the hope is that if you come to the Arts Board for a second year, that you will include, you know, how that evaluation is then informing a second or third year of the work, because that's what the panel really wanted to see this year. And I think it's part of why we're bringing it all together. I think that they wanted to make sure that your work is evaluation driven and driven by that feedback. So good question, Stacey.
And we are at 101. So this is our chance to say, if you need to spin off, we understand and thank you so much for joining us. And if you want to stay and ask more questions, we can stay on for a bit. I just wanted to insert that and honor your time. Julie, is your hand still up or is it up again? Okay.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
So I believe that I've done all of the steps necessary with the grant report, but I just want to confirm, are we going to get any sort of like email saying, yes, you've done all the steps? I just want to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything.
No,
Email if you don't do all the steps.
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, you should, if you have done what we've asked you to do, then here's the way the process works. Our fiscal year ends on June 30th and the new fiscal year begins on July 1st. And that's when we can begin cutting checks. And so what we're doing right now is taking all of your information. And then if you've gotten us everything we need, we're going to start lining you up with our friends at the Department of Administration so that as soon as they can get it done, we're going to spin out these checks. The checks will come because we are embedded within the Department of Tourism, even though we're independent. It will probably say from the Department of Tourism, you don't have to thank the Department of Tourism, but if you want to send a thank you, you can send it to us. If they send it to them, they're just going to be confused. So that's what comes next kind of thing.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anything else for the good of the cause? And if you want to stay on and talk a little bit more about specifics related to surveys or observations or focus groups or whatever, happy to do that too. I will thank Rachel one more time for bringing up the challenge that surveys can often provide us, especially in this time for some reason. Because yeah, you are so not alone in struggling with that.
Well, I got some great ideas when everybody was talking.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing your own too and your questions, Rebecca.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Oh, Jim. Oh, those are applauds. Those not a fantastic.
I just thought I'd give it to you anyway.
We accept.
So our development person was unable to be here today, so I feel a bit like an understudy who hasn't studied their lines. But I've got everything.
It's reader's theater, man. It's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. How will you be making the recording of this available so I can forward that to our development person, please?
So we are going to be emailing it out to all of the Creative Communities applicants who've put their name under primary contact. So if your development person has done that, they will get that automatically.
We're good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good question. This has been really helpful for us too. Again, as we kind of pilot this this toolkit, your questions and comments and clarifications were super helpful. We've got a few tweaks to make, I think, which is great.
Thank you for everything.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for doing the work. Oh my gosh, your projects.
Never ending
exciting
story.
to hear how they go.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Thank you very much.
Yes, take care.